I am Kimbo and I blog at agirlinagluegun.com, and I just got back from a week-long camping trip, and when we camp, we create friendship bracelets. I've got 4 different ways to make these bracelets. We're going to start with the very easiest and work our way up to a bit more complicated, so there should be a skill level for everybody. Okay, let's just jump right in. The first one that I want to teach you is the basic braid. If you don't know how to do a braid, I'm sure there is YouTube videos that will show you a little bit better than what I'm going to. The braid usually doesn't take up a whole lot. So when you're doing these big thick ones, you need a really long piece. But the braid, I've got about 10 inches here. And then all I do to start with it is I tie a knot. And then I tape it down if I'm working at a table. This is just washi tape, but you can use any kind of tape. I tape it down, move it up so you can see it a little bit. But if I'm on the go, so if I'm at my husband's softball games, I will get a safety pin or like a cute button that has a pin on the back, and I would like pin it to my leg. If I'm wearing Levi's, I don't pin it to my skin. I pin it to my leg, and then I can work on it as I'm watching stuff as I'm moving around. So basic braid, I've got 3 colors, and you're just 2 on one side, 1 on the other side, and you alternate as you twist. So I'm showing you the basic braid. It seems pretty elementary, but let me tell you this. Depending on the colors that you choose and how many strands, the braid can look totally different. So this one I actually don't love. The one, it's very, very tiny, as you can see. It's teeny tiny. But I'm going to show you one here with a couple more strands of each color. So instead of only having 1 strand of green, you can do 2 strands of green or 3 strands of green, and it chunks it out a little bit. I'll bring it up to you so you can see how teeny tiny. It's not bad, it's just really teeny tiny. So if that's the look you're going for, 1 strand would look great. Now let's switch to multiple strands. Okay, for this one, I have 3 strands of each color. So with the braid, you have to have 3 colors. You can use the same 3 colors if you want, but you have to have 3 colors. And I'm just going to loop it and tie a knot. I usually just tie mine directly onto my wrist, but if I have this loop, you can tie a big knot at the end when you're done, and then could slide it in the loop, and then that way they can take off their bracelets. But I always seem to lose mine. Okay, so this is the basic braid again. Look how teeny tiny this one turned out. Teeny tiny, so this one's going to be a lot more chunkier. So I just get each of the colors together. And when you start these bracelets, with almost every single one, when you tie the knot, the colors don't end up by each other, so right around the knot, it kind of looks a mess, especially when we get in that really detailed chevron bracelet. I'll show you what I mean when you get there, but you can see that they're not all perfectly lined up, like that black piece is under this white piece. But as you start braiding or start making your bracelets, they look great. So don't worry about the first, it's like the first ½ centimeter kind of looks a little sketchy. It's fine, that's where you tie it, no one will notice. So we've got our 3 pieces, we're just braiding, basic braiding, but this time we've got 3 colors, or 3 strands of each color. Oh, I'm pulling it out of my tape. This desk, whatever finish it is, will not let tape stick to it very well. So you can see that one is a whole lot thicker. So that's 3 strands versus the 1 strand. And you realistically could make this, you could do 6 strands of each color. You can make it as fat as you want, just depending on how many strands you have. So that's number 1, basic braid. Okay, bracelet number 2 that we're doing is the fishtail. You can actually do this in hair as well. It's just not quite. I feel like hair is a little bit trickier because there's a lot more strands. So you can use however many colors you want. You don't have to stay with the 3. And you'll need at least 2. You'll want even numbers, if that makes sense. So if you want it really chunky, if you wanted a wide bracelet, you could do 2 of each color on each side. But I have at least 1, and I'm going to split it up. So I've got this light blue, and then I find its match, and I put it on the opposite side. 1 on each side. So that's why I'm saying you need even numbers of each color that you use. And so I've got 4 colors here. And then you want to line them up so they're going to be the same depending on how the pattern that you want. So if you want the light blue, if you want it lightest to darkest. All right, so I'm starting with my white out, going into dark. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the ones that are on the outside, which are my whites. I take it, I cross over to this side, and I put it on the inside. So it goes from the outside over to the inside. And then I'm going to take the outside of this side and put it on the inside of the opposite side. Without watching, I'm sure this is super confusing. But watch as I do it. It's totally helpful to see how it goes. Just remember that they have to match. I guess technically they don't have to match. It looks better if they match. So I'm putting the light blue, taking it from the outside, across to the inside, outside, cross to the inside. Now, like I just said in the last video, when you first begin, this little section looks a little bit of a hot mess. Oops, my bracelets are messing me up. But as you get going, you'll start to see that pattern. Outside in. Usually I do this a lot closer. I'm spreading out a little bit for you guys so you guys can see. Cross, and I always start, you can start on the left or you can start on the right, but whatever one you start on is the one that you'll start on every time. Every time you're crossing a color, you'll want to start on the same side. Now I'm just kind of not bunching it up, but scooting it up. So I've done all 4 colors, so I'm going to start over again. My white has worked its way back to the outside. It's the color we started with. Putting it on the inside. Putting it on the inside. And then I've got my light blue. And if you accidentally mess up your pattern, so if you're doing red, orange, yellow, and you do red, yellow, orange on one of the times, it's not make or break it. It's not going to ruin it. You'll probably be able to notice it, but no one else will. But just to make the bracelets look nice and clean, you want to make sure that you just follow the pattern. That's why I think it's a little bit easier when you go ombre, like when you're going light to dark, because then you can keep track of what colors are what. Right? Okay, so this is how I normally do it. I'm spreading out for you guys, but when I'm doing it at my house, I am holding it a lot closer and crossing it like this. It's a little bit easier because you have all these strings that get messed up. And when I start this one, I have about 15-inch pieces of floss just because it eats up a little bit more embroidery floss than the basic braid. So I make my strands a little bit longer. So 30 inches of each color, and then you're folding in half so you can have each color on both sides. Interrupting the sped up process. If you've been watching, you might notice that as I'm bringing it over, I run my finger down. I am breaking it up. That way the tails don't get knotted since they're so long. If you just keep doing it with any of the friendship bracelets, if you don't keep the strands separated, it's very easy for them to get knotted up. So I just run my finger down, break them up a little bit. Just prevents you a lot of annoying knots at the end. We are on bracelet number 3. I'm going to show you how to do this. It is a knot bracelet. It's actually the same concept of thread dreads. If you guys have ever had a thread dread, it goes in your hair. This is what it looks like. This is one that I've made. And that one. And it's actually the same basic knot for these, the chevron or the striped. So I like to teach this one first because I feel like you can practice the knot. On this one it's a little bit easier, and then when you have to mess with all the specific threads, it's a little bit. Once you do this one's a little bit easier, if that makes any sense. So we start with this one. It's a basic knot. I have 6 strands. You can do however many strands, you could do however many colors. Like this one, this one's 4 colors. I have about 20 inches of thread, give or take. Depending on how you do your stripes, I did one that had a really thick stripe of black. I don't have it on me. A really thick stripe of black, and so I made sure my black thread was a lot longer because I knew I was doing a lot more using the black. So just depend on how you're doing it, but I'm going to teach you the basic knot. I call it the number 4 knot. So I'm gonna break this up into 3 different colors. I'm gonna make the blue a little bit thicker. The blue's gonna have a couple more knots than the yellow. So it's gonna be big blue, little yellow, big blue, little yellow. So I have 2 of the blues and 1 of the yellow, and there's 2 strands each. And what you're going to do is you're gonna get all the extra thread you're not using and keep it in the middle. And then you're gonna take the color that you're using to knot, which will be the color that's on the outside, and you're gonna make a number 4. And you're going to take, it crosses over the front, and then you're going to take the ends and come up through that hole. So I hold this and come up through the hole, and then I'm just going to pull it up. So number 4, come up through the hole, and I like to keep this middle thread, you can't see but I'm holding it, and I like to keep it nice and tight and pull it up. Now this is where the pattern comes in. Your creativity can go wild here because you can do, like I said, you can do thick, you can do 1, you can break it up however you want. So I'm only going to do 2 of the yellow, and then I'm going to pull out 2 blues, and I'm going to join the yellow in the middle piece, and then I'm going to do the number 4. I'm going to come up in the middle, cinch it up, come up in the middle, cinch it up. I'm going to do 3 of each blue. So when I'm done with that blue, I'm going to take out the next blue, the next color, put this in the middle. So this is my middle piece that I'm wrapping around. And then I'm going to do 3 of this blue. So I'm holding it, I'm going to make a 4, and then I'm coming up. Cinch it up, 4. So you're just making sure you're going on top of the inner thread, and then you're coming up underneath and just tying it around. Well, now I've lost count. I hope that was 3. That's all right. Because once you keep going, you kind of can't tell if you've done one. Like I'm sure on this one, I was doing 5 knots, but like that one might only have 4. But once it's all together and wrapped around your wrist, you can't really tell the imperfections. All right, so now I'm back to yellow. I'm only doing 2 of the yellow. So I'm doing big block of blue, couple stripes of yellow. And then I'll just continue it on. Last one. You guys finally made it. We are going to be learning the chevron or the striped. It's kind of the same technique, it's just a matter of which direction you do them in. And this is probably the most popular one. This is the one that I get asked the most on how to make, because it just is awesome. So to begin, you have to decide what colors, and it doesn't matter how many. So you can see this rainbow one I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 colors. It took me a while. And then this one, I just have 3 colors. So you can kind of pick and choose however many colors, same concept. But since they are being woven across, it's going to take a lot more thread. So I usually have about 4 feet of this, because what happens is you get going and then you don't have enough to finish a bracelet. Like that one was not nearly enough, which it'd be totally cute if it's a zipper pull or hanging off a keychain or anything like that, hanging off a backpack. But make sure that you have plenty. Like this one, I overcompensated. I didn't know, because I was doing such a big one with so many colors, I have a lot of extra, but I can literally just snip it off and make a whole other one because I have enough on here. So I always shoot for more, because then I don't have to worry about running out, because there's really no way to add any after the fact. So I'm going to teach you this stripe one first. So this is actually going to be 4A and 4B. We're going to do the striped one first. And like I said, it's the same technique as the chevron. It's just on the chevron, you're going outside in, and this one, you're just going left to right or right to left. So we're gonna do chevron. Let's see, we'll do this color. Got a bunch of neons. I'm gonna tape it up. One thing that I forgot to mention is the more colors you do, the fatter it's gonna be. So this one is just 3 colors. It's nice and thin. It's very dirty because they've been on my wrist for a good year. This one has a lot more colors, so it's a lot thicker. So depending on if you like the thick look or if you like the thin look, keep that in mind when you're picking colors. So I've got these separated. And you want to put them in order as far as what colors combination you want to go, because you're going to want to stick with it so there's a pattern. You also need to decide, I'm gonna do it 2 at a time, 2 strands at a time. But I've also done 1 strand at a time. Let me see. That is 1 strand at a time. If it'll focus, there we go. I do 1 strand at a time versus, you can see this is 2 strands, which means, if you notice, the colors are a lot thicker. So I did 2 of each one of this pink, but if you notice, the white is really thin versus the thickness of one of these. So I'm going to do 2, you can do 1. It's a little bit more time consuming to do 1 because they're not as big and chunky, so it takes a little bit longer. This one does take a while, so keep that in mind. It's definitely not as quick. The other ones I feel like can be done in 1 sitting. This one we usually start at the beginning of the camp out, and then by the end of the camp out is when we're finished. So we're going to do the same knot that we learned for that one, the knot bracelet. It's the same knot, the number 4 knot, and we're gonna work our way across. Remember, we're doing the striped one, so we're just gonna do one way. I'm gonna start on my left. I usually start on my right, but I'm gonna start on my left and go across. So I'm gonna take this. Now the knot bracelet, you go over all the colors, but on this one, you're gonna do 1 color at a time. We're making our number 4. We're coming up and we're pulling it up to cinch. And I'm gonna do it 2 times on each strand. Done with the green, I've done that one twice. So now I'm gonna do the yellow. Getting phone notifications, sorry about that. Number 4. Up through the hole, cinch it up, and now I'm gonna do the orange. Up through the hole, cinch it up through the hole, cinch it up. 2 on each time. And you can do more, I've always stuck with 2. I feel like the 2 looks really nice when you're doing the stripes. All right, just like the fishtail kind of, we're done with this one. We're gonna leave that one over here, and then we're gonna start with our new color. So we've got green, and we're just gonna repeat number 4, and you're gonna go across, going each color. Now there is a cinch. You don't want to cinch it up too tight, but you also don't want it too loose. You want it to be really, that's what's going to give it the nice clean look, is how tight you're pulling. Two times, working our way across. This one, definitely you need a bigger workspace because you do spread out the colors. And like I said, the more colors you have, because the strands are so long, I actually only cut this one 3 feet versus 4 feet. But the more extra strands that you have down here, they get really tangled very quickly. So I like to just keep them out and separated like this, just to make my life a little bit less chaotic with all the knots that will be happening. And same with all the other bracelets, like I mentioned. The very beginning one, I always, when I teach this knot, I always start it because the very first one always kind of looks a mess. And I don't want people to be like, oh, I'm doing this wrong, because it just always, for some reason, the way that the knots come up, it never falls super pretty. Okay, so I've done all the colors. You can see I've got the start, and then I just continue down, and it's gonna give me this striped. So this one was a lot more time consuming because I had to take this orange. Let me make sure I'm in screen. There we go. I had to take this orange and I went around the yellow, and then I went around the green, and then I went around the blue, and then I went around the dark blue, and then I went around the dark purple. Like I just sat there and worked my way across each one. So it's a little bit more time consuming, but like I said, look at the results. It's beautiful. Okay, we're gonna switch gears. I'm gonna show you the chevron one, and then we'll do a sped up version so you can watch me go a little bit faster, because that's always fun. Okay, let's see what colors we got going on. Okay, so we're gonna learn the chevron. With this one, you're gonna want even numbers on both sides, just like the fishtail, and you're gonna separate them and pull one to one side, one to the other side. So very similar setup as the fishtail, and you can have as many colors as you want. It just has to have the same number or the same color on both sides. Hang on, I've got a knot in my red down here. There we go. Okay, so the chevron, it is the basic same knot. You're gonna work this black over through each color, but you're gonna stop when you get in the middle, and then you're gonna work this black over each color and stop when you're in the middle. And the chevron just naturally forms. I always think it's gonna go straight across to meet. I can't get my fingers to line up. It's gonna go straight across the meat, but the way with the knot, it pushes them down and it makes that chevron go all the way down. And then when you get to the middle, you'll tie a knot, but we'll go over that. So I'm gonna we'll start over here on the right. So you're not gonna do a 4, you're doing a backwards 4. So it's the same knot, it's just flipped. And I'm still doing 2 at a time. Tape's coming up. 2 at a time on each color. Okay, so we've worked the black all the way in, and now I'm going to take the 2 pieces and I'm going to tie them in a knot twice. And then I'm going to start with the outside colors and do another set. So this one's going to be green all the way through. All right, I have my greens in the middle. I'm gonna tie a knot, and you can see how that chevron is already forming. The black, I mean, like I said, it's always kind of a hot mess, that first one, and then the green starting to really form. And then you just work your way down, color by color. A little more time consuming, but the results are so good.
Okay guys, I hope I inspired you to go and make a whole bunch of friendship bracelets. If you have any questions, let me know down below. I will link to the stuff that I mentioned. And if you want to subscribe to my channel so you can stay in the loop of all my new videos, that would be awesome.